Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Molly and I do book content here on YouTube. I talk about a mixture of Christian fiction and non-fiction, as well as your mainstream secular fiction and non-fiction. I also do some tags which that are usually book related. So as I'm sure you can guess, today's video is a tag. I haven't been tagged, but I saw Cheryl from Candlewick Library do this tag and I thought it was really fun and I wanted to do it too. So yeah, I'll link Cheryl's video down below and also the creator as well. And this is called the snob-o-meter tag and it's book related. So the tag was originally created by that reading guy, and I saw the video from Cheryl's channel from Candlewick Library. So yeah, we've got a few questions, so we'll have to see how we do. Question 1. What is your definition of book snobbery? And I would say my definition would be, what is my definition? I would probably say when you're a bit judgy and a bit my reading is better than yours sort of attitude, when you think you're above certain people because you read a certain type of book, or you don't read a certain type of book, anything like that, anything that is basically prideful, judgmental and not very nice, to be honest. Let's put it simply. That's my definition. I don't know what the dictionary says. Certainly for snobbery, I mean, they won't have a specific type, book snobbery, music snobbery, won't say anything like that, but yeah, that's my definition. 2. Is there a genre or type of book you would never consider reading? For genres, not really. I think I'm less inclined to want to read horror, but I have read horror. It just depends on content really, and the not severity, but on like how scary it is, sort of thing. So it just depends with horror. Other than that, there's no other genres I don't read. I don't know if erotica counts as a genre or just a type of book. If it's a genre, I certainly won't read that. But if it's a type of book, I also won't read that. So that's certainly a type of book I would never consider reading. I think it's, well, I'll talk about it more in the next question because it actually asks about erotica specifically. So before we go on to that, there's not really a genre or type of book I wouldn't consider reading. Because I would need to know what it is first anyway, which would mean I'd be considering it. But there are definitely ones that I wouldn't read. It just depends. For example, I wouldn't necessarily read a romance with open door scenes. Certainly if I come across them, I would skip them if I don't know there is one. And the same with spice, but it depends on the spice content. Certainly at the moment that could change depending on what my discernment tells me, what the Holy Spirit tells me, but yeah. Question 3. Does erotica count as literature? So, in a literal sense, literally literature, sorry, couldn't help it. In a literal sense, yes, it's a type of book that people write, and it does count in that respect. But I don't think it's good literature. Certain eroticas might have a good message about them. Certainly ones like I've heard of Lolita. I know that's quite open. It talks about the issue about child exploitation, shall we say. I think specifically with geishas or Lolitas, or if they're the same thing, I don't know. It's certainly not one I would read, but certainly stuff like that have an important message, I can understand. But I'm sure there are other ways you can talk about such important messages in a less graphic way, in my opinion. You know, you can certainly, you know, talk about certain adult scenes with children that shouldn't be happening without going into it, you know? You know? Just saying. So, I don't think it's good literature. But it's there, so, you know, the good thing is we're not forced to read it, and we're not forced to not read it. So, you know, that's something at least. But, like, yeah, no, I don't think it's good literature. And certainly not for erotica's sake. You know, it's just pornographic. It's just another type of porn, and it's just, I don't think it's necessary, to be honest. But, you know, as someone who does struggle with things like that, I can, not with reading erotica, just spicy things, stuff like that, I can understand why people would want to read it, but I wouldn't myself. Question 4. Is it better to read classics than popular releases? And I guess it depends on what you think is better about classics. I mean, are there some classics that have quite some important topics to talk about, like a lot of Charles Dickens? He talks a lot about things like child workers and the bad living conditions here in England at the time. Like, yeah, that is better if you want to learn about that history, and very important. But I wouldn't necessarily say it's better than popular releases. I think it's all about personal opinion in that respect. I do think it's good to be well-rounded in your reading, to certainly try different genres that you're not used to, or types of books. You know, if you've not read much classics, like me, I've not read that many. Certainly adult classics, you know, like Jane Eyre, Bronte, Jane Austen, Charles Dickens, for example. Like, I've not really read any of those, but I would like to, sort of thing. So I do think it's worth being, you know, trying different things you wouldn't necessarily read. So I do think it's good to try classics as well as popular releases, and vice versa, and other genres and types of books as well, of course. But if you're not interested, I don't think you should be forced to read them outside of, obviously, education. That's a very different thing, although I still think you shouldn't be forced. But, you know, obviously education, that's a different situation. But in terms of outside of education and your own personal reading and reading tastes, I don't think you're better if you read classics over popular releases, or, you know, high fantasy over cozy fantasy. You know, like, it doesn't matter. You know, you read because you enjoy reading, or you want to try a new genre or subgenre, or a new type of book, like I was saying about classics. Like, there's nothing wrong with branching out and trying new things, and there's nothing wrong with just sticking with the ones you know you like, or more likely to like, you know, like genres. Yeah, I don't think it's better to read classics over popular fiction. Question 5. Have you ever bragged about reading a classic in order to sound smart? And I don't think so. I mean, I'm always impressed that I've read a classic, certainly in terms of, again, like I said, adult classics. Like, I tried Jane Eyre, I've read Crime and Punishment. Both are quite thick books, and at the time I wasn't necessarily used to reading classics. So, you know, I do, what was the question? Oh yeah, bragged. So, you know, I've always been like, oh my goodness, I read this book, what? Like, I've always been like that, but I wouldn't say I bragged about reading a type of book or a certain book to sound smart. Like, I'm not that sort of person. I am who I am. I don't think I'm smart in that way, you know. I don't think I'm stupid, necessarily. I just, you know, I don't consider myself, I don't know, like an academic, for example. Like, I don't, you know, I wouldn't do something like that, because it's lying, and at the end of the day, you have to keep up that lie, and I'm not about that. I don't have, life is way too short and there are more important things to be worrying about and doing than lying or trying to sound smart because you've read a book. You know, reading a book doesn't make you smart. Not in that context. I mean, does it help with your English and stuff like that? Yeah. Does it help with learning about topics you don't know much about, or experiences you don't know much about, like from minority cultures or just other cultures in general? Like, obviously, that's different again, but yeah, no, I'm bragging about reading a book to sound smart. I mean, that's snobbery. Which, funnily enough, ironically, that is to do with the tag, apparently. Yeah. But there's a lot of clouds, and I'm only using natural lighting, so if it goes a bit dark, I apologise. Okay, question 6. Do audiobooks count? And what about comic books and graphic novels? So, I'll start with each category. So, do audiobooks count? Obviously. Does it count as reading with your eyes? No. Does it count as listening and reading with your ears? I don't know how you describe it. Yes, it does count. So, do audiobooks count? Yes. And if anyone has ever told you that they don't count, and it's made you feel inferior or less than, or that you should read physically / with ebooks, don't listen to them. Audiobooks count because they are books being read to you. Okay? It is okay to listen to audiobooks. If you want to branch out and you want to try physical or an ebook, go ahead. No one's stopping you. That is totally fine. But if you prefer to read or listen to audiobooks, you do that. They're really useful for situations, like when you're working, doing housework, you can't read a book. Well, I'm sure some of us will have done, but, realistically, you can't really read a book and do, I don't know, the washing up, for example. I mean, some people do, they have their ebook and, they're tapping or whatever, but that's just a recipe for filling your Kindle or any other ebook that you may be using with water. So yeah, audiobooks count, guys. Come on. Right. What about comic books / graphic novels? Again, yes, they count. They're just another form of reading, whether they're only pictures or they're pictures with some words. No matter how many words those comic books or graphic novels have, they all count. I was a really big manga reader as a teenager. I say really big, I just stuck with the ones I really liked, so that was like Naruto, mostly. And to be honest, if any of you know Naruto, that could just take up your whole time anyway, because there's just so many books. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's still going. Also, Fruits Basket, I loved that series. I just had a bit of nostalgia hit then. Yeah, so yeah. Graphic novels and comics do count as reading. I mean, after all, if you have kids and you're reading a picture book to your kids, does that count as reading to your kids? Does it count when your kids are reading those? Yes. So why would people think that graphic novels don't count? I don't understand that, but anyway. They count to me. 7. Have you ever looked down on someone for reading a popular fluff book, such as a book with little substance, a self-help or celebrity memoir? So, I mean, I don't know if self-help really counts as a fluff book. I mean, I guess it depends on the self-help, but usually self-help are, the clues in the word help. I wouldn't necessarily call that a fluff book, necessarily. But anyway, have I looked down on anyone who's read any fluff books? No. Not that I'm aware of. I mean, I might wonder why they're reading a certain book, but not necessarily because it's a fluff book. It could be more that, I know there's... well, no, I don't think I've done that either. I was going to say it could be if I know there's, like we were talking about erotica, if I know it's like a really graphic sexual book, like 50 Shades of Grey, for example. But then again, I don't really... I mean, I guess I technically judge them, but I wouldn't say I look down on them. But again, when I say judge, I mean very lightly judge, and more in the terms of, oh, I wouldn't read that myself. Oh, you kind of know what they're reading. You're like, oh, you're reading that in public, wow. But like, I wouldn't go any further about it. I wouldn't talk to them about it, and it wouldn't make me judge them as a person, if you know what I mean. I would just be like, oh, no, I would read, and then I would move on with my day. So if you think that means I'm looking down on them, let me know. I'm not quite sure. I don't think it does, but it is certainly connected to that because I'm judging. But yeah, but I try not to do that because it's not my job to be a judge. God is the eternal judge. He is the wholly 100% good judge. Like, he's not corrupt like a lot of the judges are in our governments, you know. So it's not my job to do the judging, it's his job. But yeah, I don't think so. And I think, you know, sometimes it's good to read. Sometimes you feel you need to read a book that doesn't have much substance, you know, that's a fluffy sort of, well, not important, but like, well, yeah, they just have popular fluff. So like, it, you know, if you feel like you need to read a sweet, clean romance that has no substance, you do that. I've read them, you know, there's nothing, sometimes you need it sometimes, like maybe you've read a really difficult book, or either because of the topic or because of the type of book. Like if you're reading a Charles Dickens, I've seen most of those books, they are thick. Oh my goodness. Like, I would need something quick and fluffy after something like that. So, you know, I don't judge people for anything like that. It's more because if I know this explicit sexual content, then I'm like, oh, not what I'd read. But, you know, that's as far as it would go. So let me know, do you think that's me looking down on them? I certainly know it's me judging, and that's certainly connected. Let me know. Not chapter. I'm not reading a book. Question 8. Have you been the recipient of book snobbery? I don't think so. If I have, they've not mentioned anything to me, or if they've looked at me with a snobbery face, which I don't necessarily know how you would do that, but, you know, if someone looked down on me because of what I was reading, I wouldn't know. I've not been told, and I've not noticed, so I don't know. Chances are probably, you know, but not in a way that I've noticed, so that's good. And either way, I wouldn't care. Would you ever be friends? No, I need to do the question. Question 9. Would you ever be friends with a snob? And there's also a, well, not a caveat, but a bracket underneath going, or are you already friends with a snob? And I don't think I am friends with a snob. I do have a friend who is also a reader like me. She mostly reads horror, like Stephen King especially. She's been reading some other books too, and she's a big Harry Potter fan of the books. Anyway, so I don't necessarily think she's a book snob though. I don't think. Like, the nearest thing is that she's just me because I've not read Harry Potter. I was like, oh, I've seen the films though. She's like, that doesn't count. But I mean, we've still been friends. She's not broken up with me, you know. You know, we're still really good friends. We've known each other since college now. That was like 11 years ago, I think. Yeah. Yeah, because we met in my first year of college. And, well, she's like slightly older than me. She's like technically a year older, but we're the same age, if you know what I mean. I think it's because of the years or something. So like, she already had a year of college before coming to the college that I was at when I first started. When did I start? Was it 2013? So yeah, actually it might be more 12 years. This like September or October. Either way, a very long time. So yeah, no, I don't think she's a snob. Would I ever be friends with a book snob though? I don't know. I tend not to really like people who are snobbery in general. Like, not book snobbery, just snobs in general. because I find them very prideful and just not very nice people to necessarily be around. But I wouldn't say, but never say never. I mean, we can't, evangelize and be Christians to only Christians. We need to be Christians towards non-Christians, to be salt in the earth, to make people thirsty and want to, find out why we're so different. So we can't do that if we're not around people who are book snobs or snobs in general either. But, so I wouldn't say never, I wouldn't say I never would be, because I can't really say, things could change. But so far I probably would be less inclined to want to be friends with a snob. But I won't say definitely not, because you never know. That's right. Question 10. And this is the last question, technically. Kind of. You'll find out. So question 10. Are people who don't read less sophisticated than those who do? Now, I wouldn't say they're less sophisticated. I think it's sad that they don't like to read. But that's just because I love reading, really. But, I mean, I don't think they're less sophisticated or less than me. My own siblings, they're not readers, but they're 20. They're living in an age of technology. They just want to be playing computer games and chatting with their friends online, So it just depends, Like, it doesn't mean I wouldn't be friends with someone who doesn't read, or that I would hate them or not like them or anything like that. I don't think, I mean, technically there are times where you could be more sophisticated if you read. Like, it helps with, like, your vocabulary reading, and it can help with your knowledge, depending on what it is you're reading, like if it's a non-fiction or if it's about, I don't know, something you don't know much about, so you read something about it, sort of thing, that could be a fiction, like I said before, like different cultures or, whatever, like, so that can make you more sophisticated, kind of. But, like, I wouldn't necessarily say it makes you sophisticated. It just increases your knowledge about things, So I don't necessarily think you're more sophisticated, really. Sophistication is more than just your knowledge or what it is you read if you read, Like, sophistication comes with money. It comes with how you dress, how you act, It's not just what you consume, content-wise, I mean, not food. But yeah, no, I don't think you're more sophisticated if you read. Not really. There are people who read who aren't sophisticated at all, like me. I wouldn't call myself sophisticated. I mean, I live on a council estate, I'm not exactly rich, in a poor family, I'm on benefits, like, if, you would look at me and go, that woman ain't sophisticated. So, yeah. No, I don't think you're more sophisticated if you read. I think it can help, and I think it's a cool thing to try to read if you're not a big reader, finding your genre or finding how you read, audiobooks, etc. But I don't think you're less than if you don't read or you're not sophisticated. So, that's my thoughts. So, the technical final question is, measure yourself. Are you a book snob? And I think it's kind of weird to kind of measure yourself. I think it's more something other people should be doing, really. So you tell me, do you think I'm a book snob? Let me know in the comments down below. Let me know. And I think from my own very, very subjective, I'm viewing myself here, but I'm going to try and be, wherever the words are. Not logical. What's the word? Not severe either. Strict, I guess, Honest. That's the word. Honest with myself. So I would say I'm not really. I think there are times where I could definitely lean more towards being snobbery, like, say, judging people because they're reading, sexually explicit content, if I know it is explicit, I think that's probably the nearest it comes to it. but I wouldn't necessarily say that I am a snob for when it comes to books. I don't know. You tell me though, because you know you're watching this, you're seeing how I'm acting. You know, you're an objective view at a stranger on the internet. So you tell me, those of you who are watching, after seeing my answers to these questions, do you think I'm a book snob? Let me know in the comments down below. Okay, well, that's all of the questions, guys. I really enjoyed this tag. I think it's really fun and just really cool. So thank you, Cheryl, because you're, where I first saw it. But also thank you to that reading guy for creating the tag, which is really cool. If I can tag him, because I don't know if he's on YouTube, I assume he is. I'll try and tag him if I can, as well as Cheryl and her channel and her video. So yeah, I'm not going to tag anyone because I can't remember if Cheryl actually tagged people in this. I can't remember. And either way, even if she did, that doesn't mean I have to anyway. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, if you would like to do this tag, please do. I will leave the questions in the description. So if you want to film yourself answering these questions as well, please do. I would love to watch them if you tag me, or if I'm already following you, I'll be seeing it anyway. And yeah, if you don't want to do a video but you want to answer some or all of the questions in the comments, please do. Just write them out in the comments and I'll give it a read. And yeah, thank you for watching and taking time out of your day. I hope you've all had a good week so far. It's currently Tuesday, but when I'm filming this, but obviously hopefully I'll be uploading this on Saturday morning. So I hope you've had a good week and that you have a good rest of your week. No, you can't see it. I've got the cat here. It's our older one. There she is. Yeah. She's a cutie. Evil sometimes though. She's a bit of a grump. She's an old woman in human years. Because she's technically about between 8 and 10 years old now. But she meows like she's an old woman with COPD. So, like she's been smoking for 30 years. Don't you? What? Hi. Aww. Right. So anyway, got distracted by a cat. Yeah, so thank you for watching. I pray God blesses you for the rest of the week. And yes, thank you for watching. You all know what to do. If like, comment and subscribe if you haven't done those already. And yes, I will see you next time. Bye.